Welcome to Rock and Recovery. I'm your host, Jay. Today, my guest is John David Gregory. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, thanks, Jay, for having me on. It's truly an honor and pleasure. I don't take it lightly anytime somebody gives me their platform and allows me to speak to their audience. So thank you so much. Hey, my name's John David Gregory. I'm a good old Kentucky boy living out here in Hollywood. They say you can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy. I say, don't let that fool you just because I'm in the city of angels. I still am a country rooted young man, but born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, and spent some time there as a young athlete, pursued my dreams, ended up trying to play basketball at the University of Kentucky. I said I was the last man cut under Coach Rick Pitino when he had his first team at the Cats, and through that trauma of just not being able to make the team, ended up walking on the football team just because I wanted to wear the big blue. But yeah, my life's been filled with all sorts of trauma, addiction, recovery, two steps forward, one step back, two steps forward, one step back, five steps forward, three steps back, over and 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 again. And truly learning to find my place in the world now, and finding out, in life, it's much better to give than it is to receive. And my life's mission now is to help people that have been through trauma and who feel like when they look in the mirror, they don't know who they are. They don't know what their identity is. And I'm trying to help them So yes, it's called I Am the Faceless Man in my story, but I want to help people become faceless no more.
So, what does the Faceless Man entail?
The Faceless Man is, I call it a rock and roll cinematic memoir of my life. If I could have rewritten the story, I would have been a rock star. I'm an old '80s hair guy, man. I love rock and roll. It's like my whole life was built on a rock song for every part of my story. Faceless Man tells that story of a young boy who in Kentucky who basically lost his identity, not all at once, but piece by piece. Whether it been through being sexually abused in the very beginning by a childhood friend, repeatedly, onto grade school, to having a grade school coach from the opposing team take a liking to me and trying to recruit me to a very popular high school that he was also involved in, and him abusing me, to a priest in that high school that did the same thing, and so on and so on. It's a story of those situations in my life, and still trying to being able to show up and perform, because I always was. That's what I did. No matter how much I got beat down, you would never have known I went through any of those things, even as a kid, because there was this dog in me that was always like, come on, John, get up. You got to fight. You got to go. You got to do this, man. You got to perform. I mean, I was a star athlete. I was, one of the top players on the basketball team and on the football team. And, I was the jock, so everybody looked up to me, and people would have no clue. Then I was going to church, and part of the youth group and all those kinds of things. And so, in the middle of all that, I'm literally, like I said, there's pieces that are being stripped away, and even just what I want to say is, as I was going through this, I'm trying to go, how can I cover the pain? And for me, it was, it started right at the point when I was at the University of Kentucky. I was playing football, and I was, once I realized I wasn't going to be the star, I kind of just lost interest. And I was out with the team one night at a local bar, and there we were dancing around, and the song Ice Ice Baby comes on, and man, it was like I went out there, and they were
Vanilla
like,
Ice.
come on, man. And I had the hair and everything, and I was like, I just started dancing, and the team was dying. They were like, this white boy can move. And from that moment, I went up to the bar, and this guy hands me a business card. And this is where my life changed. He was like, hey, man, how would you like to do that and make money? And I was like, what are you trying to say? And he's like, I saw you just took over this whole place. Like the place went nuts when you did that. He goes, how about women screaming at your name, all the booze you could ever have and money. In that particular moment in my life, where I was with the hurt and the pain and the rejection. I mean, you have to understand something. I wanted to play basketball so bad for Kentucky. And it was like, I just, when I was cut and I couldn't make the team, I was just devastated. That was like a lifelong dream of mine. And I had all these obstacles in high school, and whether it be injuries or one thing after the other. And the coach didn't play me the right way. And I wasn't able to my game wasn't facilitated towards this kind of style of offense that we ran in our high school. Ironically, I know I'm jumping around, but years later, I put this in my book. That same coach came to me and said, man, I screwed up how I coached you. I should have let you. He goes, seeing how I see all the players now out in the state, scoring 20, 30 points a game, shooting 5, 6, 3, making, because I was a 3-point shooter. And that was like at the beginning of, in 1989, when 3-point shots were the first year of being valid in high school.
Wow.
So he didn't know how to coach it. No one knew how to coach it. And I was a dead eye shooter. So anyways, my stats just weren't as great my senior year. I was battling an ankle injury and just, and again, all this oppression and depression from what I was dealing with, the trauma of the abuse, because it was still kind of going on at times. So, getting to college and then that happening. And then, so it was it was like that moment where I was like, this is something that might numb the pain. So from that moment, I got in a car and I went to this place. I drove actually because I was in Lexington, and I lived in Louisville, but I was playing football in Lexington. So then I drove back towards actually where I'm from in Louisville, and went to this nightclub, and I walked in and I seen these guys up on the stage dancing, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And the girls were screaming and yelling, and then all of a sudden they blew it over on me and were like, hey, this guy, he plays football for Kentucky. Let's put him up here in a contest. And they immediately threw me in this contest with this guy that was a boxer, and he was like real famous in the area, and everyone knew him, so they're cheering. They're like, we're gonna see who can do it, because that person's gonna win money and maybe a chance to dance on this male review team. I'm like, hold up, man, I'm just here looking and checking everything out, man. I don't know about this, but I'm like, but then that dog in me, man, it's that guy was like, all right, you know what, I know I can move, man. You know what, I don't know how to strip, but I know how to move. So and I went up to the DJ. They said, tell him what you want. And I said, can you mix something? And he goes, yeah, man. And I said, start off with Def Leppard. Do you want to get Let's Get Rocked? And I said, and then about 30 seconds in, go into CNC Music Factory, Make You Sweat. And he looked at me, he goes, a rock song? And I go, oh, I like it. That's different. He goes, and I go, trust me. I go, I got this. And I'm thinking, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't, but I'm just going with it. So I get up there, and this guy, the boxer, gets up there, and he did 2 left feet, and he's kind of moving up, but he's big, and I'm kind of medium size, but I wasn't huge. I wasn't ripped necessarily all the way, but I could move. And all of a sudden, and they're like, all right, ladies, give it up for the next guy here, and JD, and all of a sudden you hear, do you want to get rocked? And then I walked out to this little strut, and it was like a pause for like 2, 3 seconds, and everybody was like looking at each other, like, and then I started moving, and then they went berserk, and then it cut into that dance song. I started dancing, and then, man, they were throwing dollars. There was money being thrown on the stage, and I was like, I just find myself right here. And it was like, and I say this in the book, it was like, it was a moment when it was like all that trauma and pain subsided. But I know it was now I know, of course, but it was it was a Band-Aid of what's
Right.
later, which was really what was to come later, was ripped off, and the devastation that followed, actually even getting involved in this business for 10 years. From that, I ended up winning that and getting a part in this male review team. And, that whole basically, I call it the detour, because I had planned on leaving Kentucky and moving to LA and pursuing my dreams of being an actor. And but I got detoured, with the money and the sex and the booze, all that stuff, man. And people don't realize, I tell people straight up, I'm like, oh man, what was that like? I'm like, you know what? for the first little bit, I had a blast, absolute blast, fun, great. I mean, who wouldn't? In the if you think about it, in that moment, whenever any girl in the place coming up to you, wanting you, and anything you wanted at your disposal in cash, it was like it, and that's and it was one of those things where it blinds you because you're not dealing with reality. But I slowly started to see over the time, like, people getting I've lost guys overdosing. I seen one of my best friends committed suicide with that, and through that process, the entrepreneur in me always kicks in. I looked at all this and I was like, man, I can do it better. I'm like one of the stars anyway. So I was actually approached by another kid, and we ended up going across town to a rock and roll bar where all the major bands would come through in Kentucky. They'd be the Sunset Strip, and they would also come to this bar called the Toy Tiger in Louisville. You can look it up, research it. It was like this famous, again, like, yes, in Louisville, Kentucky, like rock bands like from Guns N' Roses to Motley Crue to Warrant, you name it, they were there. They all came through, and in that time frame. But so I started my own show there, man, and we were kicking butt, man. I had a team of people. We did it, and then basically there was a moment when I think I felt that if I don't get out of this now, then I'm never going to get to my dream. I mean, I wasn't satisfied. I mean, I was at the height of the pinnacle. I wanted to do
How
more.
hard was it for you to get out of your addiction? I mean, we haven't even really touched on
Yeah.
how it affected you.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of taking you down this route, because
Yeah,
this is I wanted to give you the backstory to this, because
absolutely.
in the middle of this, I mean, I was a drunk. I mean, I was doing cocaine. I was drinking hard. It would be like I couldn't dance without having something in my system. And a couple of guys could, and I didn't know how they could do it. Because for me, I mean, my addiction it wasn't I wasn't the wake up and have to have a beer in the morning guy. It was I had to have it to perform. So
Mm,
it was I had to have it to be this fantasy figure for screaming people, because when I would sober out, then I would get depressed, and I would be like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. What am I doing? Which I always knew was when I would come to reality for me, and I can only speak for me. But for me, I knew it was God touching my heart, and pulling me and trying to pull me out. But then I would just try to numb his voice, by getting back into and staying in it, and the money and the girls and the fame and everything that would come with it. It was like, it was too good, and then again, it was up and down, up and down, up and down, until finally, it was like, I just remember, it was like I had a moment of sobriety in myself, just sitting there in my room going, I have got to get out of here. And I'd seen Chippendales come into town, and this is what kind of pulled me in that direction. They did a show at our bar, and I was looking at these guys going, man, these guys aren't all that. There's no reason why I can't do any of this. I ended up talking to one of their guys, and he's like, you should call this guy. So one thing led to the other, and I ended up talking to a vice president of Chippendales, and they said, well, if you get out here, give us a call. It's kind of like the thing. And I just needed a little push, even though I really didn't want to dance anymore. But I also was like, okay, I just want to be an actor. And I left everything and sold off my part of the company and moved to LA. And then from there, it was like a reset. But that's why I try to tell people this. I'm like, you know what? I was talking to some people last night about this, and I was like, you can take yourself out of an environment, but when you go into the next environment, there's still you, and there's still, oh, I'll change the scenery, bro.
you're still the
There's
same
there's
person.
still,
You
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
changed
I mean,
nothing about yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can still put everywhere I went, me went with me. And even if I tried to suppress, it would always rise itself up. And so I'm like, and at first I was like, man, I don't even want to do the Chippendale thing. I just want to be an actor. And I did, man. I started off and met some people, and next thing you know, I was on set of the movie That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks. And it was crazy because I was just signing up. I didn't know what to do. They're like, oh, go be an extra, start doing extra work. So, and while I'm on the set with Tom Hanks, of this movie called That Thing You Do, I was still me and kind of buff then at 25 or something years old. And then I see this director walks over and says, "Hey, Tom wants you to be in this scene with him." And I'm like, "What?" And it was this beach scene, and they're all on the beach, and I had this like tight shirt on and some shorts, and I said, "Oh, what?" So I went over and I introduced to Tom, and he's like, "Hey, you know how to do improv?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I kind of faked it a little bit, but I was like, "Sure." I mean, I'd taking acting classes in Louisville at
I
that.
mean,
I
isn't
said,
that what improv is anyway?
"Yeah,
Kind of like making it.
yeah, you're just listening, acting, reacting." So anyway, he goes, "You know what? I want you in this scene. I'm just gonna throw you lines and just I want you to play off of me." And I was like, it was almost like surreal. I couldn't believe this was happening. So I ended up getting this great little part in the movie That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks. But then a bummer was like when I went to see it, I rushed to the theater and I go out. The cool part was that scene is there, but they took the dialogue out. It cuts away, and he and I are talking, but just this music's playing, and it's a close up, and then it goes away, and then comes back, and he and I are laughing again, and it goes away. And I remember sitting in the theater going, "What? Come on." I was like, I read out, and this shows you my age. I called my mom on a payphone, like, I was like, "Mom, I'm supposed to be, what happened? What do I do? I'm so pissed." She's like, "Well, that's just the way it is. They choose what they want to put in there." But all that to say, it was like getting out here. I had some like quick little instant successes and got on some soap operas and things, but I decided to that fueled of that, oh, let me curiosity would get the best of me. And so I went over to check it out. So I went over to the Chippendales office, and this is all in my book, man. And I'm like, I go in there and walk in, and man, I'm seeing posters on the wall and everything, and this beautiful girl at the front, and she kind of just looks at me, but there was a sadness on her. I'll never forget it. As beautiful as she was, she just had a sadness to her. And she's like, "Oh yeah, he's waiting for you." And I go in thinking, okay, I'm this big time, stripper boy, from Kentucky. And I mean, I have my own show. And I walk in there, and this guy was just chewing somebody out on the phone. Looked like he was out of a mob movie, and he had a gray suit on, a hair slicked back. And I'm in there, and he's like, yeah, like, stay like there, just get in front. Hey, give me a second, and all of a sudden he gets up and he's like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm John David Gregory." He goes, "Oh," I go, "Oh, where are you from?" I said, "Kentucky." He goes, "Oh yeah, you're that guy." And I said, "Yeah, I have my Mel Review show." I met. He goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You had a show, okay?" Kind of like, we're chipping. Your show was shit. That's
Right.
that's what he was. I mean, it was just total like put down, put down, put down,
He
put
just
this
put you in
scene.
your place, basically.
Yeah, he just totally did. And I was like, "Well, what, bro? I can roll with this, And so I'm just sitting there, man, and he basically gets up and he goes, "Hey, well, take your clothes off." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he's like, "I want to see what you got," like that. And that was like a trigger trauma for me because again, I had been abused and I didn't know what this is LA, this is what's going on, and and I was scared to death. And I remember standing there and just going, "Oh well," and I was just like, "Fuck it," you know. It's just kind of where that was always my decision. You just go, "Fuck it." And pardon my French, that's why I
You're
tell
good.
people, look, my story's kind of raw, man. It's just,
You're
and I only
good.
do that because I want you to know where I was in those moments. And so I took off my top and everything. He goes, everything like that. Luckily, I always joke, I always go, as a stripper used to say, "Hey, always wear your stripper underwear because you never know if you're ever in a situation you might need to make some money." So I had some stripper underwear on, thank God, So I just took down my jeans and everything and just stood there and then had this guy like circle me like a hawk, and that was so uncomfortable, man.
Yeah.
And he basically gets back and he goes, "Okay, I like what I see, everything." He goes, "But you could use a little upper body work. I tell you what, just meet me at or meet at Catnap, not meet him, but be at Catnap Dance Center on Saturday." In the middle of all this, man, this was like during the OJ Simpson stuff. That's how
Oh wow.
crazy this is. So, this is, and the reason again I'm painting this story for you is because again, this is me again chasing something that's like that whole world is so fake and so and so what do you call it? It's like I really felt even, I always say this, like God was trying to pull me in a different direction, but I kept wanting this more of this gratification, instant gratification stuff. That's why there was, always with alcohol or with the drugs, with the sex or having someone just hey, appease me. And that's why I didn't know you lose your identity in all of this because you don't know who the hell you are. I'm like, who am I anymore? And so even through all of this, I'm like, now I'm trying to, keep going with my acting and everything. But I ended up showing up to that Catnap Dance Center, did the audition. We're in the middle of it. OJ's like driving down the middle of LA freeways and everyone stops and we're looking at this little black and white TV. It's crazy, man. I mean, this is like such a movie scene, and I'm going, we're all like, oh my God, ends up coming back. They wanted me to go to Las Vegas to be on their, I call it their alternate team. I guess I wasn't big enough or whatever to be on the main Chippendale squad yet. But I was like, yeah, screw this, man. I don't want to do this. I was like, I'm good. I'll pass. I didn't want to do it. And so I walked out, didn't take that gig, started to go back into my acting. And this is again, man, this is how like this thing keeps following you because here I walking into an audition one day. And again, I'm in there thinking I'm trying to do it the right way, trying to do things for good. I had slowed down. I wasn't really drinking as much or whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna try to chill out on all that. And I go into this audition, and when I come out, it was for a pretty big show. And I come out, and this dude is sitting there. He's a casting assistant. He was kind of a little bit of a heavy set African American gentleman. Was so nice to me. The moment I walked in was just, hey, you're gonna do great. Don't worry about it. Relax, and just everything he was telling me. And when I came out, how'd it go? I was like, oh yeah, I don't know, man. He was like, and he was just encouraging, so nice. And he's like, hey, here's my pager number. This again, our age. He's like, yeah, hey man, I could give you some tips and introduce you to some people. I can tell, are you new in town? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, man, everybody needs somebody that one person to help them out. Maybe I can help you out. I was like, oh, wow, cool. This is great. So one thing leads to another. I end up not texting because there was no text. It was the pagers. And he had me come over to this place up in the Hollywood Hills. And, it's in the book, man. This is where it just starts going down a dark path. That's why I tell people, I go, that's why I told you that backstory for a reason, because all of this stuff I went through from being abused to then being in that business it was just, I mean, as I say, I was just what piece by piece. I even write, I said, I was just pieces of me. It's like, I'm like just literally being stripped from me to a point of where when you're so stripped down, it's almost like you're willing to just let whoever tell you who you are, what you do, and how to do it,
How do you
and
feel?
how everything. And
Yeah.
to me, and that is part of addiction as well. I mean, it's like you're to the point of, I was like, my addiction it wasn't just one particular thing. It was how I handled all the trauma. It was the choices even I was making because I had no self-esteem. And I did, like I said, I call it faceless because again, I would look at myself. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know. I don't know who I am anymore. Am I the football player? Am I a basketball? Is there somewhere I was a Christian somewhere in there? I don't know where that guy was, but here I am now. I fast forward. I'm like, next thing you know, I'm walking into this casting associates, place up in the hills in Hollywood, and I can see the Hollywood sign behind it, and going in and walk in, and there's booze everywhere and music, and the TV's playing. That all of a sudden he's got some lines laying out there, and I'm like, what's all this? And I knew what it was. I was trying to pretend I didn't see it, because I had done some cocaine back, but I had stopped doing it because I was like, man, I gotta quit doing this, you know. But as he was there, he's like, here, try one of that. And I was like, no, I'm good, I'm good. And then I get a couple drinks in me or whatever. And then he's like, look, no, I got something better. Look at what that is. I'm like, what is it? I didn't know. He goes, I call it Tina. And I go, Tina? Who's Tina? And he starts laughing. He's like, Tina makes you feel really good. And then he goes, and you don't even need it. I goes, just trust me, do it. I was like, and he was like, come on, man. I got, all these started naming off celebrities. I'm gonna be taking you over there, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna go over to this. That's what he'd always do. Hey, we're gonna do this for a little bit, and I'm gonna take you over here to this party, and I'm gonna introduce you to some people. It never happened. It never got to that point. Because I was like, because of what I'm about to tell you. So I'd never done this before. So I ended up going and I snorted up a little of that Tina. and washed it back with, I don't know, a beer or something. I don't know. And with it, man, it's like I tell anybody if you've ever done that, it was like literally like I felt like that rush that hit me was like I said, I felt like I just let Satan into my body because it literally like I didn't know who I literally like was not me anymore. I mean, it was in every maybe and then some people, you know what? It's like let me just say this because I'm transparent. Maybe you know what everybody don't ever think I tell everybody this. Don't ever think that you would never do something because but when the drug enters your body it alters your perception, it changes your DNA, it changes everything in you, and like yeah we all are made a certain way, and yeah if we let ourselves go we could do sorts of crazy perversions or do certain things or whatnot, stuff you would never think you would do. And at that moment it was like this guy like starts to he puts on pornography on the TV and then starts playing it, and I'm looking up there. He's trying to see my reactions, and I'm just kind of laughing it off, ha ha ha, doing my thing. I'm starting to feel it, and I mean, literally, as literally the minutes are going, I'm like getting more like for me, like I got like total like it was like a libido arousal. Like I completely felt like weird. I'm like some kind of sexual demon was taking my body over. And next thing you know, I'm just like touching myself and doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, man, let me. He goes, no, you don't want to do too much, just a little bit. So I just kept trying to drink and drink through it. And next thing you know, he puts on gay pornography. I'd never seen it before. Like, but I knew what had happened to me and some of the stuff, but I'd never seen it like what hit the stuff he showed me. And next thing you know, he comes over and starts touching me and doing everything. And I mean, I'm out of it. I'm just sitting there like a rag doll, and I remember him completely violating me and everything, but I couldn't do anything. I tell people, I go, someone's like, you were a big dude. Why didn't you just stop him and push him away? And I'm like, I couldn't. I was inside, I was screaming. I couldn't, but this thing had taken me over. I was like, this war between this like was literally like just enjoyment to the point of, but the inside of me was screaming out no. And
Almost
and I
like a
remember
numbness.
it was a numbness where you literally you're frozen. And it was funny because it's not funny, but it was. I say that because it's just like an uncomfortableness for me to even talk about it at times. But it's to the point where when I remember getting out of there and him sleeping, and I got out of there and went home, and I remember, that's why there's this song by Creed, which motivated me to write this. One of the I have many motivations for writing the book, but there's a song by the band Creed called "The Faceless Man" or "Faceless Man," and it just talks about that whole like I don't know who I am anymore, and I know if I go down this road, if I walk along to the other side, I know I might not make it home, and that is I kept saying, God, I'm afraid if I don't get out of this, I'm not gonna survive. But I remember laying in my apartment and just crying and washing myself for like hours in the shower and just feeling disgusting and gross. And like, I can't believe I let this man do this stuff to me, and everything. And here's this, and this is the sick part of the addiction that people don't understand. It's like, even in those moments were those precious moments. And I felt God and I felt like just, hey, I got to change. Something's got to stop. It's that same repeated cycle, but it didn't. And next thing you know, I get a beep on and hey, I know we got a little crazy, but hey, really got this coming over this time and da 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 da. Da. And I was like a glutton for punishment. I went back again,
Hmm.
and I went back again, and I went back again.
Why'd you keep going back? Was it the drug?
Yeah, the drug, the maybe it was he might just introduce me to that right person. Maybe this time he will. Maybe this time he will. Till finally the last time I went over there, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna get the drug. I'm gonna steal some. And that way I don't have to see his big ass anymore. You know what? And I let him do whatever he wanted one more time. You know what? And then he passes out. I know the routine. You know what? And this time I went over, I searched his place and I got myself a little bit and put it in a baggie, and I left. And that was the last time I ever saw him. And I remember going back to my place, and this is where it was pretty traumatic because people always say, "Oh, oh, you find God and all this kind of stuff." I'm like, nope, God finds you in the middle of your low. And for some reason, he chose to spare me in this moment. I don't know why, which I do know why now, but I didn't know why then. But I was so just disgusted with myself and distraught. Um, I remember getting there. I ended up like 3 straight days I was high on meth, at least. And I was by myself in my room and just, I mean, literally like high as a kite, and next thing you know, I remember that feeling I say when it was like my heart just like all of a sudden started ramping up on its own. I don't recall like had I even taken a line then or drank anything. I just remember being in this room and all of a sudden I could feel my heart speeding up. It's like somebody turned up like a dial, and I was like, "Hey, what's that?" Like it's faster than I can. Like I'm like, "Uh-oh," and then it was like getting faster and faster and faster. Like I thought it was gonna explode,
Oh
and
yeah.
it scared. I mean, it scared the shit out of me. I remember just going, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die!" Like, uh-oh. I was like, and I immediately was like looking for something like something to help me. What do I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do. But the only thing I knew what to do is it was almost like I was transported back into that Sunday school class as a kid. The teacher saying, "If you're ever in trouble, call to God." But it was just like this, But that's all I could. I didn't. I'm looking. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I mean, I say all this. This was happening within seconds. Like in the panic, everything hit me. I remember falling to my knees, and I mean, I'm dizzy. I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally gonna die. No one's even gonna know. My mom. I mean, your whole life flashes before you, and literally, I don't think everyone says it. It wasn't like some cheesy Christian movie. Oh, Lord, save me. No, it was like, bro, I don't know. All I know is I called out to God in some sort of way, whether it be in my head. I don't know. So I'm not gonna fabricate it. But I know I called out to him in my heart. I believe it was in my heart. And because at that moment I felt, and again, I came from a very, very, very conservative Christian family, a Southern Baptist, even though I did go to Catholic school, but that was because my parents wanted me to be in a private school. But I felt like this heat come over me, and that's how I describe it, like a hot oil, and then somebody like holding a blow dryer to my face, like heat and oil. And it was like I remember feeling that, and I thought, and then all of a sudden a peace hit me, and I remember going, maybe this is what death is. Maybe I remember that split second thinking, oh my God, I'm slipping away, but it was peaceful, and I just thought, okay, and I kind of and I yielded to it. I was like, this is it. And I just yielded. I accepted that peace. I felt the heat and the thing. And as I was sharing the story with somebody last night, I said, I don't recall the exact time frame, but I remember kind of coming to and like looking around the room, like looking at my hands, looking at everything. And I think it was around 6 in the morning. So I think I might have passed out at that point. It was probably late at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning when it all happened. And I remember running to the bathroom, splashing some water on my face, and then I'll as I t- and then all of a sudden I had this memory of like, oh my God, am I alive? Or like maybe I'm dead in the floor, maybe I'm out of my body, right? I mean, I didn't know. I'm like, but it was this creepy feeling, and I run back in the room to see if I'm actually laying there and I'm out of my body. And I thank God I go in there and there's nobody. I'm still me. I was like, oh, I'm alive. I'm not floating out in my body somewhere,
Right.
because
The
it scared the
relief of
shit.
actually being alive after something like that.
Yes. And it was at that time that I got this call. Like, I mean, again, this is like crazy how my life is, but it's like the phone rings and I had this old AT&T cell phone. It was right when they first started coming out. And my buddy calls and he's like, "Hey man, I don't know why, but I woke up this morning, you were on my mind." And he called me and he said, Are you okay?" And I broke down. I was like, and we had been friends for a while, every now and then we'd talk, and I basically told him, I said, "Dude, I'm such a fake. I was like, bro, he goes, oh, what do you mean? I said, dude, I'm on drugs. I'm on meth. I'm like letting, gay people molest me. Now, I used to, I'm just doing horrible things. I'm just a piece of trash. I mean, I was just like devastated. I broke down. I had nothing. I was at my bottom, and he's like, don't move. He was in Carson City, Nevada, and he's like, I'm coming out to get you, and he did. He basically came out and got me, loaded up my car. I just skipped out on that place. I didn't care, and he drove me to Carson City, which is a whole nother story and everything that goes on. If I don't know how much time we have, but I'm giving you this. This is again, it's like anyone that's like, the guy that wrote my forward for my book, he reads my book, he calls me and he goes, John David, my God, this is why I say forward, back, forward, back, forward, back.
Oh, I
It,
know the
it
feeling. You
is,
know,
it, every new place I would go to, it's like, you think, fresh start. But again, who's with you? You,
you.
you know. Even with God saving me in this moment, which is like, I should have just been like, joined a monastery or something. I don't know. I mean, it
Right.
was like, it's like, damn it, you
You
know?
know, methamphetamine is a terrible drug to get on. That's what I was addicted to for almost
Mm.
30 years.
So,
You know, oh yeah, I know that beast, and it's just a beast. Once it gets its grips in you, it's hard to escape that.
it
I mean,
is.
you'll crawl through the pits of hell basically to escape
Yeah.
that, and still
Yeah.
get drugged back in many, many times.
I can honestly say that I had never done it again after that moment. I kind of just leaned more on alcohol, but it was, quick wild story. I'll kind of fast forward. I did have an incredible encounter in Carson City, and some things happened. But when I came back to LA, getting church, trying to live the right way, all of a sudden it's like, I don't know how it happened, but that remember that drug dealer. So he knew the car I had. I had this convertible like Chrysler Sebring. It was very distinct.
The Sebring convertible.
You had one too? Come on,
Oh,
man.
I know the car. My grandma used to drive the shit out of that car.
Yeah, it was convertible, right?
Yep.
So, dude, I remember coming out of my place and there was this note taped to my car, and like a little like off a little memo note, right?
Yeah.
And inside it was taped up, and I opened it up and it says, Tina misses you. Welcome back.
Oh,
I was like, wow. Like how did this person, I was in North Hollywood, like staying in this place, like I mean, actually, because I was in Carson City for the summer and then I came back. But I'm thinking I was in a new place, even living too. So it was like, how did he find me?
yeah.
And that's why I know it was like so evil, bro. And I remember, that moment pulling out and looking at that little baggie, it was like, boy, that thing talks. And it was literally like, and I remember for a split second, and I just went, and I remember walking over to the trash can, and it was like this big trash can, and I just remember just throwing it in. I dumped it and threw it because I knew I was like, just dump it in there, throw it, and I threw the rest of my trash in because I knew the trash had come on that day too. So, making sure I didn't tempted to go back and scoop it out, but that's how crazy that this part of that story is with that guy. But, um, I will tell you a really cool part back in the Carson City. Um, I was trying to be, straight and narrow there and everything. My buddy was helping me. I got a job at a gym he says, just coming for the summer. And I was trying to work at UPS. That lasted 2 days because I could not handle, my ADD was off the royals. I couldn't take boxes and put them in trucks. I just can't do that, because they have zip codes and you had to match them. And I'm like, dude, can't do it. So I'm working at this gym, and all of a sudden this really hot girl walks in from the desk, Mary Kay chick, back when Mary Kay was really popular, and I'm like, God, who's that? And they're like, oh, that's the owner's wife. And I'm like, oh, okay. Here on the old stripper boy, I mean, I had every girl throw themselves, married women or whatever. It didn't matter. I had no moral compass. But then I was like, all right, I'm not doing this no more. I'm gonna be good. But I noticed she kept looking at me. I'm like, why does she keep looking at me, man? This is crazy, you know? So one day, ironically, I'm going to clean the tanning beds and I go, and this girl walks out of the tanning bed. She was coming out and I was waiting for her so I could clean it. And then she walks out and she kind of looks startled and then goes quickly. I'm like, that was weird. So as I open the door, the big bodybuilder's in there. And I'm like, what the hell? And he just goes, oh, hey, John. Yeah, so, yeah, thanks for cleaning this. I'm like, wait a minute. She would, okay. And this is the owner's husband, that girl that
Wow.
and I was like, what do I do? Oh my God. You know, so all that to say, like, she actually ended up becoming a friend. She would just come and talk to me while I was at the gym and everything. And I knew this, you know, so I ended up telling my buddy's girlfriend that wanted to got me in there. And and she worked there. So she got me the job. And she's like, don't say anything, let it go. Don't do anything with this. I'm like, all right, whatever, man. Whatever. I don't care. So the old joke is, you know, again, the old dog comes out and I'm there. I'm not making any money. I'm like, this is frustrating for me. I know how to turn something fast. So at the time, I opened up the phone book. That's what we had. And I looked up, you know, mail, like I looked up bachelorette, anything. And I find this lady, her name was Ramona. And she does this bachelorette service stuff. And I called her up, told her who I was. She said, come over to my house. I go over there. And I'm like, I did this. I was, you know, I turned down Chippendales. I have my own show. I go, let's do something here in Nevada. Do you have anything here? She goes, no, I just hire guys to do parties. I said, man, I know how to do it. She was okay. So next thing you know, we teamed up and here comes Nevada Hard Bodies. I had a team of guys and we're doing shows in Carson City and up in Lake Tahoe at the Caesars or the Nero. It was called Nero's or something at the time. And you know, I was killing it. And one day I look up and me, my buddy, he's pissed at me. He's just like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, I'm not gonna do any drugs, don't worry, you know. And but you know, I'm still drinking a little bit, but not like crazy before. But so I'm there one day and I look up and that girl, that gym owner's wife is there. And I was like, she comes up, buys me a shot of tequila and a Corona and sits down next to me. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And she pours her heart, tells me a story about her husband and everything and how he's been cheating on her all this time and blah blah blah. My pleading heart and my hormones kicked in. Next thing you know, we're at it. And I'm like, you know, we were totally having this affair, you know, probably for like a couple months. And until one day she says, you know what? Remember when I told you I used to go to church? I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, I need to take you. We're going I don't feel right about living this way. And I'm like, oh, now you're Sister Mary. What's going on? You know? So she takes me to this church. And there's a reason I'm telling you this because this is a very pivotal point. This is, remember, I had that moment in Brentwood where it was that supernatural moment that I didn't understand at all, but I knew it saved me. So she takes me into this church. I walk in, people are like hands in the air, everything. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I was like, again, I come from a Southern Baptist. It was, no one moved during music. It was like, you know, I come from very strict, you know, there was nobody doing this and
Oh
praise God
yeah.
or anything. I
The
mean, it's
fire and
Southern Baptist.
brimstone, Southern
Yeah,
Baptist.
Southern Baptist was, you know, you're all going to hell and everything else. So anyway, I said, I'm gonna go to the restroom. She goes, you better get your butt back in here. I didn't care. I was in the restroom probably most of the service. I kind of shimmied out at the end. Like she's giving me the stink eye. And next thing you know, the pastor walks up to me and immediately I just fold my arms up like this. And he goes, hey son, how are you? And I don't know what it is with that. I do know it now, but then it's when someone says son to me, it an authority figure, it disarms me. It's like it's almost like my dad talking to me or I believe my father in heaven talking to me and it just disarmed me. And I'm like, and then he puts his arm around me. And normally when a man puts their hand on me, it triggers me and like anger and rage and you know, because I'm no longer on these drugs. So it was like, and so then I would be angry and mad, like get the fuck off me kind of thing, you know. But I just when he did it, it felt that warmth that I felt, and that it just all of a sudden I was like, why do I feel this warmth again? That I'm like, I'm not on drugs or anything, you know. I guess I was a little hungover because I definitely had drank the night before, But I felt this warmth again, and he looks me right in the eye and he says, "Son, it broke God's heart the day that those people abused you, that childhood friend and that coach." I'm like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, and I looked at Dana like I call her Grace. Sorry, probably shouldn't say her real name, but I looked at Grace. I'm trying to say people's names, so I looked at Grace and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Did you? And then I thought about it. I never told her. I didn't tell anybody. No one knew this stuff. And I'm like, I look back at him and he goes, and he smiled and he goes, "I know what they've done to you in Hollywood, and I know the guy that's been, basically torturing you, and you were just going back like a slave to him." And I'm just like, and I basically literally just fell into his arms, and I'm bawling my eyes out, bawling. And next thing you know, I'm on the ground, and I'm like, they're praying over me, and you know what? People can say what they want. They can call it bullshit, say it's fake. I really don't care anymore because I know what I experienced. But he's praying over me, and I know some stuff was coming out of me, man, because I just remember like screaming and I threw up, and it was a mess. I was a hot mess and laying there, and I remember when it was kind of blurry, and I know they had been praying. All these people, I just remember kind of looking up. People are praying over me, but I was just such in a state of just brokenness. Like it was the heaviest cry I've ever had in my life, like a like a and it was like and if I could press pause, it was like going back to the first time I was abused as a boy. All this time, all this trauma, all this from that and then the coach and the priest and then stuff that happened to me in Hollywood, all this stuff. It was like all of this built up in one and just going all the drug, everything. And I remember getting up and just and feeling drunk, but it was a different kind of drunk. It was like, and I just remember like, God, I feel, and he's like, no, 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 sit down, sit down. You need to, your God's spirit's like, you just need to relax for a minute. I was like, what is going on? And I get up and they're looking at me in my eyes. They're like, you look like a different person. Oh my God, what's happening to you? So it was funny because in that moment, I remember like I felt like I could hear and it was like I started like and he told me, he said, "Start, I want you to start journaling because you're gonna start to hear things." And I did. I was like, you're Hollywood and reach people. And it was like my heart shifted to like, now I need to help people. I need to help people and tell them this story. But this was a long time ago which I never did yet. So I started writing all this down and then it was like, and then I get to this other point, it was like, and you need to leave Dana or I did it again, Grace, leave her and go back to LA. And I went, whoa. And I was like, and I did. I had to break up with her. And I said, listen, I owe you a debt of I mean, what you did for me, I said, but what we're doing, I can't do anymore. I go, you're the one who brought me to church. So I go, you need to figure your life out. You need to figure out, you need to get this. If you're getting a divorce, get a divorce. Maybe I'll, at that point, then we can talk. But I thank you and I'm grateful for you, but I have to now go back. I know I need to go back and figure out what I'm supposed to do with my life. And so that was a big shift again, as you can see, for this kind of
Oh yeah.
this a bit,
And on this whole, so far your whole story, you've been turning your pain into purpose. I mean, there's been
yes.
a purpose for everything that's happened to you and everything that you've been doing. How do you turn your pain into purpose? You yourself personally, and what does that mean to you?
Well, because it's bigger than me. So in order for me to turn my pain into purpose, it's easier. I've always said it's easier to help others than it is yourself. I know that sounds crazy, but at the same time, when you start thinking about, even in my sobriety, what's fueled that pain into purpose was I'm like, I have to stay sober. I have to stay on the right path because if I don't, there's people's lives in the balance, and that's what fuels me. That is like a fuel that doesn't stop. It drives me. And so when those moments come, when those pains try to resurface again, I'm like, man, shut the fuck up, get out of my head. You know what? I know there's people, because I know there's 10 people waiting for me to hear my story. I know there's people that need to hear this. And every time I tell the story, even now, anytime I tell yeah, is it a little painful? Sure it is. But you know what? I say the beginning was pieces being stripped. See, some people say, oh, well, there's this miraculous and then your life's all better. No, no, no. Hold on. No. Yes, there was a miraculous moment, 100%. But now you have to live it. So it's the piece of, it's God now. Every time I tell a story, every time I do it's now piece by piece I'm being rebuilt. Even to this day. At the end of my book, I say this is the beginning of the end. Or excuse me, this is the end of the beginning. Because now it's I'm walking every day still to this day. There is no today John David Gregory is this, you know what? I will never do anything wrong again, and I will never fall. I
Yeah.
will never do, man, run from bro, run from that person. Run.
Yeah.
I'm like, look,
Absolutely.
I got pulled into a reality show. They were talking to me and at one point, and they were like, you know, you're the Christian guy that we're looking at to put on the show. How do we know that you won't fall? How do we know that you won't slip back into this old way of living? And dude, oh my God. And this guy was like, he was the same guy that produced that movie, like Bruce Almighty.
Okay.
So, and he's putting in this little golf thing on Wilshire Boulevard. You know, he's just putting. How do I know you won't go back and do it? And I stood up and I took my foot, you know, and I stopped the ball when he hit it, and I drew an imaginary line on his little golf thing, and I towed my feet all the way up to it, and I said, "Here I am on this side today." I said, and I took my toe and I lifted it up and I set it down right on the other side. I go, "I'm this close to jumping back on the other side." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "It's a fight every single day." And I
It
said,
is.
I will not stand here and say, oh, I don't know. All I know is today, I'm on this side.
For this
I
moment right
for
now.
this moment now, yeah. And he looked
Yeah.
at me like, well, I go, stop this illusion. I don't know who, what, where thinks that this illusion that if you call yourself a Christian, that you're supposed to be this holier than thou, perfect. I will never do a drug, never do. Man, that is some bullshit. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm a flawed vessel that is living out day to day, and I need, like, there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about where Paul says that he's crying out to God, and he's like, "When are you going to take this thing from me?"
Yep.
And he's like, never, because you need me. And I'm
That's
like,
right.
I know for a fact. I will fight. I don't care what anybody says. I know for a fact that God will not remove that from me, because I have to have, I have to know that if John David Gregory is thinking he's the man and he's the superstar and actor, I know I will never, and I will not. And just like in the Bible, when Peter said, "I will never deny you, Lord," no way. Who's the first one that denied him? Jesus did. Peter.
Peter.
Right when
Three
so
different
I'm like,
times. 3 different times.
3 different times. So I'm like, yo, I'm not making any
Yep.
promises. I'm just telling you today, John David Gregory is sober. He loves God. He loves his family. I'm doing
Yep.
my best to make a difference in this world and help as many people as I can. That's all I can tell you.
All right. Before we go, because we're limited on time here, before we go, one thing that you want anybody listening to take away, what would that be?
You're not alone. You're not alone, man. I hid for so long. I'm 56 years old. I hid because I was embarrassed. And I thank God for my pastor at my church and my wife to get me to write this story in October. I finally sat down to write it, and because I still carried shame and I still had some struggles. And I know by this is helping me even still in recovery, this process. And people need to know you're not alone, especially as a men. Men, it's we hide behind this mask. We hide behind that faceless man. We hide behind, we don't want anybody to see it. And I'm like, here I am, like this is me now. And because if I'm transparent and I tell you, guess what? It can't hide anymore. And people have to know that. I hope that this brings freedom to people. They go, wow, that's me. You might be a dad. You might be successful. You might be a billionaire. You might be running a major corporation, or you might not be. You might be, a hard working blue collar worker, or you might be homeless. I don't care where it is. But deep down, you're hearing this story, and you're like, that's me. That's who I'm trying to reach. And they're saying, you're not alone, man. I know what it feels like. Like there's people that can help you.
John, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm proud of you, bro. I don't know
Thank
how
you,
much
man.
that means to you, but I'm proud of you. And
Hey,
if
thank you.
nobody's ever told you today, you are worth it, and you're not alone. I just want to let you know that, because I've faced some of the same struggles, and it's hard thinking that we are alone. It's an isolation that we put on ourselves because we're ashamed.
Yeah.
There's no shame in my recovery. I recover out loud for a reason, because there
Yep.
isn't a shame in it anymore. Not anymore. Not
Amen.
anymore. No
That's
reason
right.
to be ashamed. John, I greatly appreciate you coming on my show. I'm looking forward to big things for your future.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you so much.
like I said, I appreciate every single word that you said today. Thank you.
Hey, check out my book.
Check out his book, John David Gregory's book,
yes, please.
author of The Faceless Man. Check him out. Check him out.
Thank you, guys.
And that is Rockin' Recovery for today. Tune in tomorrow or day after that. Keep rocking your recovery.